Whatever you know from the mobile version is going to be super useful here also, and whatever you learn here will be able to be applied there. The only difference is going to be where some buttons are going to be located, but the concepts are all the same. Now, first of all, you gotta get the app. And if you use the link in my description, you're gonna get 7 days of the Pro version for free. And in this way, you're helping out the channel also. Now, you're not gonna learn if you don't practice, so I highly recommend you to follow along with me during this video. Download the files in the description or just add some of yours and really try to do it. So first, let's set up a new project. So once in the main screen of CapCut, you're gonna see that up here on the left, there's your login and your avatar, meaning that you've logged in correctly. And here there's the Create Project button, which is exactly what we're gonna click right now. If you have already past projects, they're gonna be listed down here. So every time you create a new one, it's gonna come here. And then CapCut opens, and there are different panels that we need to talk about. But just to be clear, let's first import some of the footage. You can do so by clicking over here on the media bin and then selecting the footage. Or you can go directly to the folder and you can just drag and drop the files that you want inside here. I'm just gonna drag these, and now I have all of these here available, and it populates with some of the frames from the video here so that you can have an idea of what you have inside. Okay, so now that we've imported some of the files here, I'm just gonna get the main shot, intro and outro, click on it, and you're gonna be able to see it over here. I'm gonna pause it. Now up here on the left, you have the first panel, which is the Tools panel. And here is where you're gonna decide what you wanna do right now. If you wanna add some stickers, text, videos, what is it? In the middle, you have the preview. This is where you're gonna visualize the files that you're about to put in the timeline and also the ones that are there already. Here on the right, we have the details or properties panel. And here's where, if you have nothing selected, where you're gonna set up your project's details. And if you've got something going on, then this is where you're gonna change the properties. We're gonna see it in detail. And down here you have the timeline, which is where you're gonna put all of the pieces together. But before we start, let's be sure that we have set up everything correctly to start well. So first of all, we're gonna come to this modify button up here on the right, and we're gonna set everything that we need. First, we have the name of this project, which I'm just going to name it as CapCut project. Then we have the aspect ratio. And here's where you're gonna decide where is this video going. If it's gonna be on YouTube, then probably you wanna choose something like 16:9. Or if it's gonna go to social media, down here you have all the vertical options, which you could choose, for example, 9:16. On resolution, you can choose adapted, which is already gonna figure it out by the files that you have, or you can set custom and then change what's gonna be the height and the width of your video. So if you filmed, for example, in so-called Full HD, you wanna have 1920x1080. Or for example, if you're using 4K, it's gonna be 3840x2160. The frame rate is something that is going to depend on the footage that you have. If you've got no idea, whenever you import something, CapCut is gonna create a timeline with the same frame rate as your footage. Have you seen those flipbooks? It's exactly the same. It's how fast CapCut is going to read your files. In our case, I'm gonna leave it as 25 frames per second. And down here in color space, I'm just gonna leave it as Rec 709 SDR. If your computer is slower, you can come to Performance and you can turn on Proxy. This is gonna make all of your heavy files a little bit lighter just for you to edit. And whenever you're gonna export and create your final file, CapCut is going to reference to those and make your final file the maximum resolution. I'm just gonna click Save. Now, just a quick reminder, if you downloaded my files, it's perfect. You got them all in the maximum resolution already. If you're using your own files, just be sure to transfer them to your computer using something that won't degrade the resolution. So like WhatsApp or Telegram, don't use those. Try to use something like Dropbox, Google Drive, AirDrop. Okay, to talk about the next steps, let's put something on the timeline to visualize better. So I'm gonna come here to the main shot, intro and outro, click on it, and you're gonna see that immediately the file begins to be played in the preview panel. I'm gonna click space or pause. And now you have many different options on how to throw it to the timeline. You can simply drag and drop. And you're gonna be able to see that now it's here in the timeline. Or if you wanted to bring just a piece of the file, you can also click on it, pause, and then you have two handles here in white, one on the left and one on the right. This means that we're cutting the file to begin only in a certain point and to end only at a certain point that we want, so that we can import just that piece. And now I can drag and drop, or I can just come to the plus button and CapCut is going to add just that small piece around here that I can drag around and rearrange the way that I prefer. Notice that whenever I'm dragging around these white handles here, I'm seeing in the preview exactly the point that that handle is. This makes it easier for us to understand which point of the video we are cutting. By the way, this talking head video that I'm giving you to follow along with is part of a video that by now probably reached 1 million views on YouTube alone, or very close to that. And I've got a free CapCut for desktop lesson on Skillshare, in which I edited this very video from scratch with you. In the lesson resources, you're gonna be able to download everything that I used to make this video. All the talking head videos, all the B-roll, everything. So if you wanna go a little bit deeper inside CapCut for desktop, you can go check it out. Back to the video. Now, if you did like me and you imported this full video here on the timeline, there's still a way to trim it down just like we did in the media pool, in case you forgot it, for example. You have the same handles down here. You could just click on it and drag until you get to the playhead and do the same for the ending. One way is by pressing B and bringing the slice tool to cut wherever you want. Now you're going to be able to see that there are two different files. I'm going to choose the cursor again with A. And now we have 1, 2, and the third file that I've added. Another way of cutting would be to just click on something and come into split. So it's really just about preference. Whichever way you prefer to work, it's going to be okay. Now, what you've probably noticed is that editing this sideways like this is not going to be very comfortable. So let's first change this over here in the preview panel by clicking ratio. And now we're going to change it to 9:16. Okay, now it looks much better. Before we rotate it and start editing, let's add another file here to the timeline. And I'm just going to choose this one from Venice. I'm just going to click the plus button. And you're going to see that it adds to the timeline in the closest gap between files that CapCut can find. And as you can see, we have the whole file out here. Now, if I drag the handles, as I told you, we can still trim it down. And just be aware that we cannot extend it, because this is already the maximum length of that video file. Now, you've been seeing me moving around the timeline by using this white line over here. And this is called the playhead. Now, around the timeline, you're going to see that there are different sectors you need to pay attention to. And first of all, up here, we have the time itself. So this shows how long is your whole timeline. If I bring it until the last clip here, you're going to be able to see that it lasts exactly 20 seconds and 1 frame. The time continues on, but we don't have anything around there, so it's gray. Down here, we have all the clips that we inserted, and it looks very like one dimension only. But the reality is that you can just click on one of them and bring it to another layer above. And you're going to be able to see very soon that we can add many layers with many different elements in this timeline. And this is one of the main reasons why to use CapCut for desktop. It makes it so much easier to handle a lot of different objects in the same video. Now, what you're seeing in the preview is exactly where the playhead is located. So if we're positioned here around the 3 seconds mark, this is exactly what's going to be shown at the 3 seconds mark if we export this video. If I bring it over here, then this is what we're going to see around more or less the 11 seconds mark. To just move it around, you can drag the line itself. You can click here on the time itself and just click and hold and drag. Or you can simply click on another time. Many different ways to do the same thing, it depends on how you prefer to work. Now let me click here again just to remind you of something. And it is that in the timeline you're always seeing from the top to the bottom, meaning that whatever is on the upper layer is what's going to be on top of the video itself. So in this case, I have my talking head video on top of the Venice video. So this is going to show above it. If we were to invert it and just drag this up here, and put the talking head video below it, it means that around there, you're not going to be able to see it because the Venice video is covering it. But you can still see the outline here in the preview to have an idea of where it's located if I have it selected. So if you can't see something on your timeline, just be sure that it's in the correct order. And don't worry, probably you saw that the clip just snapped there to the left. I'm going to explain why in a second. First, let me just show you very quickly this side here of the timeline, which is also very important. First, you get an icon showing what is in that layer specifically, because CapCut tries to keep it very organized. This indicates that there are only videos in those layers. If I just add something else, like for example a sticker, in another layer, you're going to be able to see that now we have a sticker icon just here. So you'll never be able to have videos and stickers or effects or something in the same layer. They're all gonna be divided. And for any of them, you're gonna have similar controls here. First, you can lock them in place so that you don't accidentally move them around if you don't want to. And for all of them, you're gonna have a hide or show track button. As you can see there in the preview, it basically shows or hides whatever is in that layer. If I do the same now here for the Venice video, for example, you're gonna see exactly what's below. And in the case of video files or audio, you're gonna have some other options, like for example, to mute the track. And in these three dots here, you also have the track height, which I'm gonna make tall because it makes it easier for you guys to see. And we can also increase the size of the audio waveform. 100% is gonna show just the audio waveform. But if I put it to 60, now I have a much clearer exhibition here of how high is the volume in each of the parts of this video. And this is going to be especially useful in this case here. Let me do the same for the talking head video. Audio waveform 60%. And now as you see, I can easily identify the moments in which there are gaps while I'm talking and where I'm actively talking. This makes it so much easier when you need to chop down a video. And just for you to get the hang of it, there are some shortcuts that you can use just to play around and move a little bit around the timeline. The first of them you're going to use all the time is pressing spacebar. And this is just going to play or pause your video. If you press B, you're going to have the cut tool. Now when you're above a clip, you're going to be able to see this dashed yellow line, and it's just indicating where you can cut it. If I just click here, I'm going to separate this video into two different ones. And if I just want to come back to the cursor tool so that I just can move things around, I just press A. Now maybe this was a mistake and I didn't really intend to cut this file over here. You can always undo stuff by clicking Ctrl Z. And actually, if this was a mistake and you really meant to do that action, you can press Ctrl Shift Z. And whenever I say Ctrl, it can be also Command if you're on a Mac. Another shortcut that I use all the time is pressing up and down on the keyboard because it takes you to the next cut on the timeline. So the beginning of the clip, now the ending of the clip on the first layer, then the first cut we have here, and then finally the end of the project. Just makes it faster to jump from cut to cut. And always remember that you can redimension everything here to make it much easier to see and to edit. So you can just move these around to make them smaller or bigger. On the preview itself, you can just move it around like this. You can make the timeline smaller or bigger like this. Plus, a very nice hack here is coming to this menu over here, in which you can choose the layout. And especially if you're editing vertical content, choosing the vertical layout here is just gonna make things much clearer. So what I like to do is to have the big preview here on the right, just make this halfway here, and have the timeline occupy the lower part. Now, something that people usually go crazy about is how the timeline behaves sometimes. And if you don't know how to set it up, it can really be a little bit wild. So let's check the buttons here on the right because they're going to dictate everything that happens. First of all, we have the main track magnet, and this is what's going to make all of the clips snap to the beginning if they are on the main track, meaning the first layer. So for example, if I just grab this clip over here and I drag it to the right, it's going to stay over there. And this means that now we have a black gap here on the project. CapCut's idea is to avoid that in the main track. So if I just try to put it down here, it's going to snap it back. If you don't like that and you just want to be able to put the clips wherever the hell you prefer, you can turn it off. And now you're going to be able to just position them wherever you feel like. So in this case, for example, you have a black gap here, right? So you could just drag this clip down here so that wherever you have the playhead, there's always one clip visible on the timeline, meaning that we don't have black gaps anymore. And this is how I usually prefer to edit and how I recommend you to have this set right now. If you ever find yourself making mistakes and having black gaps in your video, maybe this might help you. But for now, I recommend you to have it like this. The second feature is the auto snapping. And this means that CapCut is going to try to help you position things in the right way. So if I carry this clip over close to the next one, you're going to be able to see that now we have a blue line over here and I can feel it just snapping to that corner. And it means that it's exactly positioned after the other clip. If I try to trim it, I'm going to feel the same, either in the direction of the playhead or in the direction of another clip. So this is basically a guideline for you to know you're positioning things the right way. My recommendation, leave it on. Linkage can be a little bit more complicated, so just leave it on for a while. The preview axis, I recommend you to have it off. But I know some people that like it. Let me show you what it does. It means that wherever you're carrying the cursor over the timeline, you're gonna be able to see this yellow line, which is the current playhead. If you have a fast computer, this is a very fast way to preview everything, but I find it very confusing, so I prefer to not have it. And here is the control of the zoom of your timeline. Whenever you want to do a more precise cut, it's very useful to just zoom in and know exactly what you're doing. But if you want to have an overview, it's much better to zoom out and have that bird's eye view. If you want to be a little bit faster, instead of coming here to the slider, you can either use Shift-Z on the keyboard to make this bird's eye view, or you can use Ctrl or Command up or down to do the same. Now here on the left side of the timeline, you're going to see many more options you can use. And I don't want to go through all of them right now, but a couple of them are going to be important to make everything faster for you. And although you can use them by just clicking on the buttons here, it's faster if you learn the shortcuts. So two of them I want to show you is going to be the delete left and the delete right. These are going to take into consideration where the playhead is. And if you just press here, for example, W, it's going to cut everything to the right of the playhead on that clip. If I position it here and press Q, it's going to delete everything that is on the back. But for example, if I position it here and press W, it's not going to cut anything, because this clip here is what's selected right now. And this is going to be very important in the future, because it means that CapCut is always acting on what's selected, not exactly what you're seeing on the preview. We'll get back to it later. And by the way, if you've been trying to do this together with me, and you're feeling like your CapCut is a little bit slow or sluggish, you can come up here to the preview, and where you see high, you can change it to medium or low quality. This is just going to make the preview itself a little bit lower resolution, but enough for you to see what you're doing, so that you don't have to wait too much for it to be able to preview the timeline and move around. Okay, finally, let's take a look at the properties or details panel. And to do so, I'm just going to click on a clip, and you're going to be able to see that everything changes around here. And this is where all the magic comes up. Now the basic panel is where all the basic transformation of the clips is gonna happen. And to showcase it, I'm just gonna solve something that I know has been bogging your mind since the beginning of this video, which is, why don't we just turn this sideways? So let's do that right now. Having the playhead over here and clicking on the clip means that I'm watching that exact frame right now. So as you can see up here, we have scale, which is just the size of the clip, and you have position and rotate. Now, obviously, we want to mess up with the rotate here. So I'm just going to change it to 90 degrees, press enter. And as you can see it's always going to spin the videos in the clockwise way. So if you want, you can just press 270 here and it's going to be in the right way. Or you can also use negative numbers. So I could put -90 and it would be the same. Now, as you can see, the scale is not correct. We need to make it fill the whole screen. And to do that, you can use the slider over here on the scale and just go up until you can find where's the correct position. But usually an easier way to just change all of these basic properties is to do it directly on the preview panel. And even the rotate we could have done here by using this round button. I'm gonna go back, and to make the size bigger, I'm just gonna grab one of these handles here and make it bigger until it snaps to the border. And as you can see, the right number was 178. Now, below the basic transformation panel, you're gonna see that there's a lot of pro features over here. If you're on the free trial, or if you decided to pay for CapCut already, some of them that I recommend you trying are the Stabilize, which is gonna help you stabilize footage in which you're walking with your smartphone or your camera. It usually works pretty well. The Relight tool is very cool if you want to add lights that didn't even exist when you were filming. Camera tracking is very cool if you just want to show something and want to track the movement. And auto reframe is really useful if you want to repurpose horizontal content into vertical. It's just going to keep the main subject in frame. Now remember that idea of changing only what's selected and not where the playhead is. This is going to be very important here also, because let's say I select this Venezia clip. And now if I just make the scale to 153%, nothing changed on the preview. And if I click back on the clip that we are seeing right now, we're still there in the 178, meaning that I've changed the following clip without even seeing it. So a very common mistake is, for example, to move the playhead over here and now trying to change the scale. But the thing is, we've got selected the first clip. So now I've shrunk the first clip, but not the Venezia clip. So this can create a very big confusion. So just remember, you're changing what's selected. So this should be 178, let's put it that. And clicking the playhead, then clicking the clip, I'm gonna make this 100. And we're back to normal. Now up here you have some more advanced options that I won't go into much detail, but basically you can remove the background, and you're gonna be able to see me like this now. And you can also create masks, which is gonna be super useful if you want to do a split screen effect, or maybe one of those picture-in-picture effects in which you have yourself talking over some kind of video. These are gonna be done by adding a mask and adding one of these shapes here, while having something in the background. But coming back to the basics, we have also here some other tabs that are gonna be super useful to you. First is the audio tab. Now here basically you're gonna need two of these, which is the volume and the fade in and out. To change any of these, same procedure, just move around the slider until the place you need to. And if you make any mistake, it's always valid to do Ctrl Z or to simply double click the name of the property and it's gonna be set back to the default. Fade in and out is just going to be a smooth way to make the sound go in and out. And this is gonna be very useful, especially for music. But if you want to introduce an audio slowly, you're going to be able to see down here how it affects the clip. Now we have these black bars over here indicating that here the audio is just going in slowly and going out slowly. The longer you make the fade in, the longer is going to be that shadow. Now the third parameter is going to be speed. And by default, it's going to be at 1x. And if you make it double, what happens is that now your clip is going to last half the time. If you make it 5x, now it's gonna be much faster than that. Now what's important here is that you need to know that you can speed up the clip as much as you want. You're just gonna make it faster and last a little bit shorter. But you cannot reduce the speed without creating trouble. At least not if you didn't shoot the video in a way that allows you to do slow motion. So for example, this Venezia clip was shot at 60 frames per second. So now we can refer back to how we set up the timeline. Remember we chose 25 frames per second. This means that CapCut is going to read every file 25 frames per second. But since we shot this at 60, it has much more information than only those 25 needed to make it look fluid. So even if I tell CapCut to read this file at half the speed, there's still going to be plenty of frames to make it look fluid. So let's try that and see what happens. So I'm going to change it here from 1.0 to 0.5. And immediately you're gonna see that now it lasts much longer because we're just reading the file in a slower way. Now, as you can see, you have a super fluid slow motion video with no problems. Now, if you want to be very precise, you know that 24 is not exactly half of 60 frames per second. But for this example, it was enough to show you that you could slow down up to that point. In the case in which your video and the timeline are not exactly multiples, you're gonna need to use one of the pro features here, which is called the smooth slow motion. This is just going to compensate for those skipped frames to make everything perfectly fluid. But the reality is, if you just go close to the right point, it's very difficult to notice the difference. Now, if you continue here on the tab, you're gonna find animation. And this is just a way in which you're gonna be able to choose how the clip appears and goes away from the timeline. You have the option of setting just the way it appears with in, just the way it goes out with out, or combo is gonna be a mix of both of them. So let's just use the first clip as an example. I'm gonna choose an in animation, just like unfold, the first one. And immediately when you click, you see the preview. If I go to the ending here, you see that there's nothing happening. So I'm just gonna click on out and select something else like collision. So now you're gonna be able to see that there are two markers down here on the timeline indicating that there are animations for this clip and also how long they take. If I play it again, you're gonna be able to see both of them happening. So this is the first introduction we have to adding effects to a clip. If you wanted to do it properly, you could actually come, for the first time we're gonna change this here, we're gonna go out from the media tab and we're gonna go move over to the effects tab. As I said, in here is where you're gonna choose exactly what you're gonna work on right now. So since we're talking about effects, let's just add something on top here. You're gonna basically have two different types: video effects or body effects. Video effects are going to affect the video in general. So they're gonna be some things like light effects. And to preview anything, all you need to do is click on it and you're gonna be able to see it applied on the timeline. So you have light effects, lens effects, retro, glitch, cartoon effects. If we go over to body effects, CapCut is going to identify who is the subject in the video and apply the effect just to that. So here, if I go to the trending page and I just choose action paint, for example, it's gonna paint all over me. There are glow effects, psychedelic ones, and even some much more advanced that really needs to track the subject. Yeah, I could even continue this video looking like this. What do you think? Nah, better not. Okay, let's go on. One other element we could add here is text. And basically there's two ways of doing it. You can just add the text to the timeline. It's gonna appear on a new layer, which is indicating that it's only text. And then you can make whatever you want with it in the properties panel. You're gonna have all sorts of character editing, like templates, what's the size, what's going to be the font, and you can write what you want over here in this box. Something that I like to use is the glow. There's a pro version, but even the free one is very cool. And you can change the color to whatever you want. In the same way we did with video, we have also an animation tab here with the in, out, and loop. So in this case, if I just choose a loop one, for example, and I choose twist, it's gonna be like that. Another way of adding the text is just by going to text effects, choosing one template that you like, and just adding it to the timeline. Just another way to do the same thing. And if you do have the pro version available to you right now, you can also do the auto captions, which is actually quite simple. All you need to do is come up here, choose which language, or just let CapCut auto-detect it, and click on Generate. It's super fast, it creates a new layer, also text-based, but this time clicking on it, you're gonna have also the captions option, in which you can edit what's being said. And if you come up to the text tab, you have all the same controls. And what's gonna change from caption to caption is that if you change something here, it's gonna be applied to all if this box is chosen. Since usually you want the captions to look the same throughout the whole video, it's good to have it clicked. And if you wanna make one of those captions that look nice coming in and out, you're gonna do the same coming in animation and then choosing the captions tab. Now, one thing you're gonna notice here is that you have the option to identify filler words. And I don't recommend you to use it here in the captions menu because you also have the option of coming here in the timeline buttons to transcript. I remind you, this is a pro version feature. And the catch here is that CapCut is going to transcribe your video and it's going to automatically identify where there are gaps, and it's also going to realize that there are repeated phrases within this. So this can be a super efficient way for you to trim down your talking head videos. One other menu you quickly saw already before was the stickers menu. And here there's not much to say besides that you have all of these categories and you can just add them to the timeline as you wish. Whenever you pop something new, it's going to go to the same layer as the other stickers. The properties are going to be around here, or you can add them directly on the preview panel just like you did with any other element. The last tab I want to mention here that we haven't talked yet is the audio. And here mainly you're going to have two different options to choose from. One of them is going to be music. And below you're going to have all of these categories here to choose from. All you need to do is click and add. And now below everything and below even the main track is where all this audio is going to be placed. You can move it around, you're going to be able to see the waveform. And here you're going to notice very clearly something that maybe you noticed also in the video clips. You have this yellow line when you hover the mouse, which is actually a quick way for you to mess around with the volume. When you pull it up, it's just going to bring all the waveform up. And if you bring it down, you're going to make it more quiet. Whenever you see these orange tips here, it means that you're getting very close to make the audio clipping, meaning that it's way too loud. So if you can keep it below that, it's going to be ideal. Just like the videos, you have also the volume fading and fade out. And if you come here to the clip, you can just drag this ball up and make the fade in longer or shorter. The same thing for the fade out. Now, if you come up here to the menu and you collapse the music, you're going to be able to see also sound effects. In here, you can just browse for whatever you need, or you can search some sound effects. Whenever you like something or you feel like you're gonna use it again, you can simply click on the star so that it goes to your favorites. And then everything is gonna pop here into this Yours Favorites tab. You can see music or sound effects separated. One last thing about audio that I wanna show you is that whenever you have a video clip, the audio and the video, they're combined together into the same file. But inside CapCut, you can actually separate them if you feel the need to. In case you just want to mess with the volume, it's not necessary, because you can actually do it directly with them mixed like this. But there are some situations, like for example, you just recorded something because you needed the voice, and the video clip is kinda useless. Well, here you're gonna have two different options. I'm just gonna bring another clip here to the timeline. Now imagine that the audio from this video should be here in this moment, but not the video itself. You could come up to the clip, right-click, and go to Extract Audio. And this is just going to take the whole audio of that clip and separate it from the video part. Now, if you completely don't need it, you could simply click on the video part and delete it. The audio part is still gonna be there. But now it comes to the lower part, just like the music, because this is like the sound area. And here you can edit this just like a normal music track. One last thing that I want to show you is keyframes, and this is because the button to do it is going to be present almost everywhere on CapCut, and at some point you're going to be wondering what the hell is that. So to set this example, I'm just going to get a sticker, and I'm just going to add a cat, for example. Now clicking on it, the sticker properties are very basic, but here on the right you see all these diamond shape icons. And whenever you see one of these, is that you have the possibility of doing a keyframe. A keyframe is just you setting in a moment of time the properties for that specific element. It's gonna be clear with an example, let me show you. So let me add another video here, I'm just gonna transport the cat to this part. Okay, so let's imagine that I wanna make it walk on the roof of this building. So first, I'm gonna position it here and I'm going to rotate it a little bit to make it match. Now what I wanna do is come up here to the properties panel and set a keyframe. You could set a keyframe just for the thing that you're gonna change, like if you're just gonna change the scale or the position, but in this case, I'm just gonna do it for everything. Now you can go forward in time, like for example here, by the end of the sticker duration. And when you drag it to another position, meaning here for example, automatically you're gonna be able to see another diamond icon over here. This means that CapCut understood that it needed to add another keyframe automatically, and it's going to create all of the movement in between these 2 points for you. So if we just go back here to the beginning, we see that the cat is in the initial position we set, and if we play, we're going to be able to see it walking. Now the software creates the shortest path between the 2 points. If you wanted to do anything else, like for example jumping and doing a loop or something like that, you're going to have to create keyframes along the way to recreate that movement. And while messing around with CapCut, you're going to be able to see that it's possible to create keyframes for many other things, plus tweaking them to make the motion seem more natural. I'm not going to go into it today, but if you're feeling ready, you can come up to this diamond icon, right-click and go to Show Variable Speed Animation. You're going to have all the graphs and ways to animate and make it more fluid and interesting the motion in the X-axis, Y, the rotate, so you can control everything separately. So CapCut can be very simple to use, but it also offers a lot of advanced features. Now imagining that all this mess that I made is a work of art and we are ready to have it as a final project, we can export this as a video file. And basically when you do that, all of these are going to be collapsed and you're going to see only one layer. You're going to be able to watch this video in your computer, TV, your smartphone, whatever you want. So for that, what I recommend you to do is press Shift-Z so that you can see the whole timeline. And maybe let me just make this music a little bit shorter because it's nonsense like this. Since snapping is on, it's gonna go exactly to the end of that clip. I'm gonna press Shift-Z again. This looks better. And in theory here, you don't need to do anything. You can just come up here to the right and go to Export. If you have a bunch of stuff later on the timeline that you actually don't want to export, but you're feeling lazy right now, you don't want to delete it, you can come up to the end or until where you want to export and press O in the keyboard. You're going to be able to see that everything that is on the right of it is going to be gray or darker, meaning that only the left part is what's going to be exported. You can come up to Export. And here the important things are, Export to, you're going to set the folder where this file is going to end up. The resolution should match what you're editing. In the beginning we set it as 1080p, so I'm going to keep it as 1080p. Bitrate, I recommend you to use higher. higher is just going to preserve the quality of your video. For codec, if you want the best compatibility possible, you can choose 8264. And format, you can choose MP4. Here there are some reasons you could choose other ones, but this is going to ensure you're going to be able to see this video everywhere. Frame rate, we're just going to repeat what we set for the timeline, which is 25. And below you have some options that you don't need to. The first one is to already remind you that this project can be uploaded to the cloud so that you can access it from somewhere else. I don't want that right now, but it's something that you might want in the future. You could export the audio separately, export this as a GIF, or even the captions as a separate file. But as you see, these are all advanced features that you don't need right now. Now, very important, down here you're going to be able to see pro benefits. And this is the catch with CapCut. They allow you to use everything so that you feel what you could have. And if you do have a pro subscription, you're going to be able to export here, no problems. But if you don't, here is where you're going to understand what you need to take out of the video to be able to export it. Considering everything is okay, I'm just going to click export. And usually it's super fast. And that's it. From here already, you're going to be able to send it to TikTok, to YouTube, or simply open the folder and see your final video here. Okay, by now you know all of the basics to start editing with CapCut for desktop. Remember that if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can go check out my free lesson on Skillshare. The link is going to be in the description. And if you just want to keep watching something else on YouTube, you can check out this video over here, in which I compare the free and the pro versions for you to decide also if it's worth it keeping a subscription or not. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you over there. Ciao, ciao!